Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
I don't know.
Pull the trigger one more time. Keep going. All right, there you go. Put on safe and stay!
Oh, sorry.
Think a backfiring gun sounds dangerous? Just wait till you see how easy it is to have your retirement backfire on you.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, five-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, if you'll notice, folks, there's a definite pattern to all these backfiring videos. The scene itself usually involves two parties, and it goes something like this. The one party, who apparently knows a lot about guns, hands off a loaded weapon to an unsuspecting person who obviously doesn't know much about guns, and when improperly fired, it backfires. Now, this is nothing new to people who handle guns. I'm not a big gun owner, but I would be the same way. In fact, when I was 11 years of age, my Uncle Ed handed me a shotgun. I've been using a BB gun all my life, and I didn't realize how bad that thing would kick. So again, my Uncle Ed got the last laugh. But when you're handling guns, in all seriousness, it's no laughing matter, and neither is your money. Because in the financial world, this happens a lot of times. People will take financial products on, I think of them as a loaded gun, quite frankly, and they don't know how to properly use them. Now, the financial world is kind of like that guy handing off the gun and sitting back snickering. They get paid whether you make money or not. The financial world gets paid whether you know how to use the financial product or not. So you take the money, you trust that the people giving you these financial products or these financial strategies will be good for you. You pull the financial trigger and you hope nothing happens. Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. I am retirement specialist and fiduciary Tony Walker. And for the next 4 weeks, myself and America's favorite financial sidekick, Aaron Orender, are going to share with you the 4 most common financial pieces of information or advice that can cause your retirement to backfire. Now, what I'm going to do is take a close look at the financial world, and in this example, we're going to assume they're the gun owners, and you are the one that's going to have to handle the gun, and we're going to try to arm you with information so you can have these products and know how to properly use them. Let's start off with a little gun ownership quiz from Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, how many guns are estimated to be in the hands of U.S. civilians? A, 1 million guns, B, approximately 10 million guns, C, 100 million, or D, 400 million guns. Well, if you answered D, around 400 million guns in this country alone, you are correct. And I thought trillions of dollars stockpiled in 401ks was a lot of money. So this 400 million in guns, that's a lot of guns. And those guns, think of all the different types of guns out there and the hundreds of different opinions on how to operate these guns. You see where I'm going with this? You see, the financial world is no difference. There is no difference between the financial world offering all of these different financial products, and then because you have so many different financial products, you have all of these people offering all of these opinions on the products, which sometimes can be downright dangerous. There are literally hundreds of different ideas out there, and we're going to expose 4 of those strategies that are probably the most popular strategies for retirement and why they can backfire your retirement. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I'll be back in just a moment.
Win or lose, games are a blast, but playing around with your retirement is serious business. So don't leave your retirement to chance. Get a retirement game plan from well-known retirement specialist Tony Walker. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement with a safe and simple game plan that includes mailbox money for life. To meet in person with Tony, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement, and we're talking about the 4 types of financial strategies that are very popular out there that sometimes can backfire on you. In fact, let's just go full screen and read off these 4 common mistakes that sometimes savers make that come back to haunt them a little bit. Number 1, maxing out your 401k. And we're going to talk about this in detail in the next segment. Number 2, assuming that in retirement you will not need life insurance. Another third mistake that can backfire on you is moving your money from Main Street to Wall Street, and finally, chasing returns instead of attacking cost. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to cover those. So let's dive right in to the 401k plan. Now, first of all, let me preface this. The 401k plan, folks, is a wonderful savings tool. And even as I'm getting ready to kind of debunk some myths about the 401k, don't just rush off and change anything based on what I'm saying right here. This is really important. After this episode, if you want to meet, we need to meet in person to see what's going on specifically to your situation. But here's what the advice is in general. The gun owner, that would be the 401k administrators and the mutual funds and everybody else that has these plans, is going to hand you a basket full of mutual funds. That's the 401k and the investments. And like some of these unsuspecting people out on the firing range, most of you tell me that you don't even know what these things are. You couldn't tell the difference between a mutual fund and an ETF. But you're told that since it's pre-tax, that you should put as much as you can that the law allows you to put in. And what do? You follow the herd, and many of you are what we call maxing out that 401k. Now, there's some real definite problems to maxing out the 401k. So let's review, though. There's basically 4 dangers or 4 ways that a 401k, when maxed out, can come back to backfire on you. Number 1, when you contribute money to a 401k, the money is essentially locked up, and in most cases, you can't even touch the money unless you want to borrow against it, which is not a good idea, until age 59 and a half. Number 2, with a 401k, assuming you take your money out prior to 55, even if you terminate employment, that money is going to be taxed, plus there's a 10% excise tax on top of that. So there's a lot of penalties to get money out of a 401k prior to 55 and a half. Number 3, in most cases, a 401k offers 2 different options. Here they go. You can either have something that pays very little interest, or you can have something that potentially pays a lot of interest or a lot of growth. The problem is there's a lot of risk with that. Most 401ks, you know we're a big fan of annuities, most 401ks do not offer annuities, and therefore that's not an option you can even consider. Not good. And finally, number 4, if you have a 401k plan, you're not really what we call tax diversified, meaning when you go to take the money out, you're going to have a tax tumor to deal with, and all along because you've been maxing out the 401k, in many cases it has not allowed you to be tax diversified. So you say, well, Tony, what are we supposed to do here? I'm not sure what how do I max out the 401k? Do I max out the 401k? My wife's got a 401k. Here's the first thing I would suggest. Number 1, in general, this is a general statement, do not put anything in the 401k above whatever the employer is matching. So for instance, the employer might say, we'll pay $1 for dollar up to the first 6%. Well, they're going to give me that money. That's fine. I'm only going to put in 6% of those contributions, though. I'm not going to put in 22% to only get a 6% match because, again, all that money now is tied up, and of course, it's all going to be eventually taxed. The second thing you should do, especially if you're a young person, is make sure that you've tax diversified before funding the 401k plan. In most cases, we recommend young folks to buy 2 products. Number 1, if you can, get a Roth IRA. And then number 2, get an overfunded life insurance policy, preferably a dividend participating whole life, which will allow you much more flexibility with your money prior to age 55. So what is the best thing to do? If there's 2 sets of people out there, and we're going to be talking about this in our next segment, but there's people watching this show that are pre-retired. You're maybe putting in a lot of money into the 401k. In fact, maybe that's your main nest egg, and you're maybe 50 or 55. What I would say to you is slow down. Let's meet before you keep maxing out that 401k, because you could be creating huge problems down the road when that money backfires when you go to take it out. The second group of people are those that are already retired. Maybe you still have your 401k at your former employer. Maybe you just recently were laid off. I met a gentleman the other day that was just terminated out of the blue, and now you have the opportunity to roll that 401k into an individual IRA with somebody like us. Well, again, I would be careful. Many of you are getting these dinner seminar invitations. I've had a guy the other day say, Tony, I got like 5 last week. Why is that? And I said, well, because these folks hosting these dinner seminars know that you've got a 401k, and that 401k more than likely is going to be moved, and that's how we in this industry get paid. So slow down. If you've got a 401k, even if you're thinking about rolling it over to an annuity, I don't care what it is, see us. Let us take you through our proprietary software. Let us take you through an income plan to make sure that the annuity or the investments you're selecting are right for you, and also that you've already dealt with what I call the tax tumor. To take advantage of meeting with us, all you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Once there, you click on that confidential portal, and we will send you a confidential starter kit that you will complete and bring to your meeting to meet with me at either our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky offices. It's easy to do. Take advantage of that. If you don't have access to your computer or phone right now, call us at 877-499-9255. That's 877-499-WALK. Well, when we come back, I'm going to dive into the whiteboard. I'm going to do something I've never done before. We're going to cover two different case studies of individuals, one that's age 55 that has a 401k they're maxing out, and the 65-year-old couple that's retired, but they've maxed out their 401k all these years. What are the potential backfiring circumstances of both of these individuals? I'm going to show you in just a second. You hang in there. I'll be right back.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Can you afford for your money to take a hit with the stock market being so volatile these days? Nobody can time the market, but having a retirement game plan with Tony Walker Financial gives you peace of mind and sleep insurance. Learn how to prevent losses in your retirement accounts and plan your retirement around an income you can never outlive. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com today to schedule a personal meeting with Tony to secure your hard-earned money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a buyout? Has the company you work for recently moved or been acquired or closed its doors forever? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k to safer territory. Why continue to risk your hard-earned money when you don't have to? Let's meet in person today to discuss your retirement options. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your no-obligation appointment to meet with me in person. Do it today. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're going to take a deep dive into this notion of why you need to be really careful of maxing out your 401k and two examples of how that can backfire on you. Now, the first example I'm going to cover here, we have what I call paper rich and cash poor. Bear with me on this one. And I do see this quite a bit, quite frankly, folks. And first of all, let me say this. I admire the way many of you save money into your 401k plans. We're not telling you to rush out and stop that. What I'm saying is, by putting so much money in there, you're setting yourself up for some real issues. And here's an example of one I ran into a couple of weeks ago. This was a couple, age 55. They came to me and they said, Tony, our goal is to retire at age 60, which is reasonable. Usually we can manage that. But then I started diving in further, okay? Doing this for almost 35 years, what I've realized is you have to know which questions to ask and what route you're going to take these folks down so you can understand very quickly what you have to work with. It's kind of like a doctor trying to examine something. You know, I see a lot of people in my training as I'm able to get to the chase pretty quickly and figure out how we can help. Now, at first glance, you look at that and you go, wow, Tony, $500,000 in their 401k plan, that's a lot of money, especially when you factor in Social Security. Shouldn't that be plenty of money? And in most cases, that's a lot to work with. Now, what's been happening, and I asked them, and I said, how much are you currently contributing to your 401k? And they said, well, the max, and this is the problem. So I look at their savings, cold hard, after-tax liquid cash. And folks, $4,000 at that age is not enough money. That is not good, all right? And then we look, and here's why. Over the years, they've been indoctrinated to max out this 401k so much, they don't have hardly any money in savings. And what's happened is, in this case, they accumulated $20,000 of credit card debt. Remember, they want to retire in 5 years. They have car debt of $30,000, and they still owe on their house $150,000. Now, I asked them, I said, what are you doing about that credit card debt? And they said, well, we're paying on it a little bit here and there and blah, blah, blah. And I said, by the way, what did the 401k make you last year? And the lady chimed in. She goes, well, if you count the last quarter, we lost money. So I said, well, let's think about this a minute. You're putting your life savings up here. It's got a tax tumor buried within it. We haven't even counted that yet. And you lost money last year, and then you paid to the bank. What was that for the credit card? I found out that was 21% interest. The car debt was 5 and the home debt was 4. So between all this money they're putting into the 401k, all the taxes they're going to have to pay, all the risk they have, and then all of a sudden we got all of this debt that we're not doing anything about, we've got a real issue. And I said, you know what your problem is? You're diversified all right in your 401k. You got plenty of big basket of mutual funds here. The problem is you haven't been tax diversified. So what we're going to do in this case is figure out a way to try to attack those debts. Because if we can knock out those debts, we can probably get them close to age 60. This may be you folks. If you're sitting there and you're maxing out your 401k and you don't have any cash in the bank and you have a lot of debts, this is not a good sign. We need to talk. All right, now let's go to a second example. I came up with another one. This is a little more optimistic, shall we say, just as doable. And this is going to sound really cool at first, but first I got to turn this board around, so let's flip the board around. So what we've got here is, this one's called Annuity Rich and Cash Poor. Now in this example, we've got a couple that's 65 years of age. They recently retired. They started their Social Security, and they went to a dinner seminar and were convinced to put all of their money into an annuity. Now, if you know me, you know how much I love annuities and how much annuities we do. We love these products, but one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of people are throwing their entire life savings in annuities, and again, they're strapping themselves for the flexibility needed that a retirement specialist and a fiduciary such as myself is trying to help them with. That's one reason we started our Charles Schwab platform. The Charles Schwab platform is not trying to grow all kinds of money. We're not trying to make 10 to 20%. We're trying to preserve as much as that as we can. The fees are next to nothing. We have the lowest fees in the industry for what we do. But more importantly, we need the Schwab account for the liquidity to cover things that are going to be unexpected. Folks, when you do something as long as I can, here's the deal. The only thing that's certain is things will change. So you better have a flexible program to meet those changes. That's where our split IRA comes in, and we can talk about that at another moment. All right, so let's go to this. So they've got the $500,000 in the 401k. They put 100% of that, which that was a no-no, into an annuity, all right? Even though it's a good annuity, we're going to see this is a problem. They have $50,000 in savings. That's good. You know, it used to be we'd say, well, that's too much money to have sitting in the bank. Tell you what, folks, anymore, $50,000 will go pretty darn quick. So I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. And then they don't have any debt on their residence, no other debt. Everything's looking great. So 2 or 3 years goes by. They're all excited. They want to buy another home in Florida, all right? Now this happens a lot, folks. They didn't have any inclination back when they first took out this annuity that they might want to do something like this, but now they do. So they talk to me, and they're showing me this stuff. This happens a lot. They'll say, well, I'm thinking about doing this, and I can't get a hold of the old agent that sold me this. Can you help me with this thing? They don't know what to do with this annuity. Maybe the agent can't even find them anymore. And that's another thing, too, folks. I know I'm rambling on this, but this is important. When you put all of this money into these annuities, remember, we're all paid the same way. We all get paid a commission. So the question is, what are these people going to be doing to earn that commission? This is why I have a large team of staff that helps service the annuity and the retirement planning income we're going to set up long after the annuity sale. So think about that before you rush out and buy an annuity. So they say, well, you say, but Tony, what's it going to cost? We need about $150,000. And I'll say, well, fine. Are you okay borrowing the money? And they're like, oh, no, I don't want to borrow any money on this thing. We want to pay cash. Okay, great. Do you want to take all the cash from your savings and drain that? And they're thinking, well, no, maybe use a little bit of it, but, well, let's just assume you don't use any of it. What if you just take it out of the annuity? Of course, I know where I'm going with this. And they say, hey, that's a good idea. I'd rather have some of that money in the home in Florida. So what do I do, Tony? Do I just take out the $150,000 out of the annuity? Well, let's think about that. So they call the annuity insurance company that's issuing it, and they ask for a request of $150,000. Now, since the annuity's only been in force 2 years, let's imagine that the insurance company is going to charge a $20,000 penalty to get that much money out. We don't know what it is. It's going to be penalized if it's only been 2 years, but they weren't aware of that. Nobody told them about penalties. Plus, since this is an IRA, $150,000, let's say the government, maybe they're going to take another $30,000 of that. So now they're left with a net of $100,000. So all of a sudden this annuity is not looking too good. What should they have done? They should have split this annuity up into two components, with one being the flexible liquidity component, so we could have met some of these predicaments that they're into now. Plus, if they were counting on mailbox money, that's going to hurt their situation down the road. So here's the point, folks. If you have a 401k and you're maxing it out, we need to talk. If you're already retired and you have a 401k, or maybe it's already been rolled into an IRA, we need to talk, because the service after the sale is the key. We have to keep your taxes as low as possible. We have to keep your fees as low as possible. And in order to enjoy this money, somewhere in there, we got to have mailbox money for life. So why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com right now. Let's talk about your 401k and how to maximize that so you can be more worry-free about your money. When we return, I'm going to open up the Bible and see if it has anything about backfiring. Backfiring on your money, but also something that could backfire on your faith. Good stuff coming up, but I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Tired of the financial world chasing after your money? Dinner seminar invitations? Annoying pop-up ads on your computer from out-of-state advisors? It all adds up to confusion. There is a better way. Meet in person with nationally recognized retirement specialist Tony Walker. Tony's personal one-on-one approach has helped thousands of savers worry less about money, and best of all, Tony's right in our own backyard. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Make the short drive to meet in person with Tony now. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Another good cup of coffee on this beautiful morning in Louisville. Incidentally, we appreciate your feedback so much on the show. We are now in 7 different major television stations. You can check out our different viewing times and stations. We're even over in the Lexington area now. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and you can scroll there under Media. And don't forget to DVR. We have people that DVR the show, and any questions you have about the show or would like me to talk about as far as topics, please let us know. You know, whether it's someone taking you out to the firing range with a loaded gun that you know nothing about, or someone talking to you about maxing out your 401k and investing all of your hard-earned money into something you know little about, we humans are easily impressed, and actually we're pretty easily swayed. There's many reasons for this, I guess, but I think the biggest reason we do dangerous things is, before we understand the consequences of those actions, is that we fear missing out. That's a common term called FOMO now, fear of missing out. I think that's kind of cute. But FOMO is the action of blindly trusting others because we think they know better about something than we do. And quite frankly, and sometimes in the end we find out they're about as clueless as we are in some of this stuff. This herd mentality to impress others or to feel a part of the pack, fear of missing out, can backfire on us. And sadly, the same thing can happen when it comes to trying to impress others in the name of God. In the book of Acts, let's take a look at this. The book of Acts shares with us the first church and what it looked like some 2,000 years ago. Now keep in mind, at this time the Holy Spirit was moving among all the people, and we see at the end of Acts chapter 4 the practice of everybody, listen closely, selling all of their property and bringing all of the proceeds and giving that to the church. Now friend, I don't know how generous you are, but that's pretty generous. And to take everything you have and sell it and give everything to the church, I would assume creates a lot of pressure and a lot of temptations to keep up with the Joneses, especially if all your friends are parading up to the altar and laying down 100% of the proceeds. Now with that pressure does come to the temptation to not maybe follow through on what you intended to do. In fact, let's go over to chapter 5. This is a very interesting account. In verse 1, we meet a married couple. I don't know if they had a 401k or not back then, but we meet a married couple by the name of Ananias and Sapphira. They follow the herd and sell the property. They own some property. Now, instead of publicly taking all of that money and laying it at the apostles' feet, they decide to secretly hold back a little bit of that money for themselves and take the balance, thinking nobody would notice, up to Peter. Now, Peter calls them out on this. He knows exactly what's going on. And he says in verse 4, folks, while it remained unsold, did it not remain your own? This is a key point, folks. You know, He loves us to be in charge of money. And Peter's reminding that when you own something, you own it. And then he says, and after it was sold, listen, was it not still under your control? Another good news comment about the grace of God and money, all right? It's still in your control. You still own it. And he says this, though, why is it that you have conceived this deed in your heart? In other words, he's saying, why did you come up here and act like you're giving it all and you didn't? Here's the key point. He says, you have not lied to men, but you have lied to God. In other words, their gift literally backfired on them. In fact, folks, this turned deadly for these two folks. So in this account, we need to understand when we give money, we need to understand where our heart is and when we give that money. It's a check on our motives for giving. And it does beg the question, are we giving to impress others, or are we giving out of a gratitude for what God has done for us? Now, what I've personally discovered in my own walk, if given the choice between impressing others or relying on God and putting my trust in Him, I'll take God every time. Paul gives us some instruction for trusting God and making sure our heart's in the right place. We're going to turn over to 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 6, where Paul says, he who sows sparingly shall also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully shall also reap bountifully. So Tony, you say, how much am I supposed to give? Well, let's keep reading. What does Paul say about that? Verse 7, some liberating verses here on giving. He says, let each one does and give just as he has purposed in his heart. Listen, not grudgingly or not under compulsion. Why? Because God loves a cheerful giver. So what he's saying is, don't give to impress others or because you feel pressured to give. Don't give under compulsion, but give because God is leading you to give. And finally, follow up here. We're almost out of time. Romans 14:22, great verse of Scripture. Paul says, the faith which you have as your own conviction before God. Why? Because happy is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. So how about you folks? You might be sitting there saying, boy, that's great, encouraging stuff, Tony, but let's get back to this. I don't want my finances backfiring. I didn't realize that this 401k I have is full of taxes. I don't know the fees associated with it. I don't know how to use and enjoy it. And I didn't realize that it's all going to be taxed when I die. How can I get a handle on my money? Well, that's the easiest part. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to meet with me in person. That's right, folks. I meet with all of our prospective clients in person. Our organization is a large organization. We have many great staff that provide service after the sale. But what makes us unique is I take my 35 years of being in the financial trenches and I meet with each individual client in person to share what I've learned with my situation so I can apply it to theirs. Take advantage of meeting with me in person. You can either meet with us at our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office. And for those of you over in Lexington, just make that short drive over to Louisville and you'll be glad you did. To set up a time to meet, click on the Let's Get Started, or if you don't have access to your computer or cell phone handy right now, give us a call at 877-499-9255. That's 877-499-WALK. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's program. We've got 3 more strategies that are out there that could backfire on your retirement. And next week, I'm going to be covering strategy number 2. You be sure to tune in then. But between now and then, if all else fails, you remember to be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.